667 Capitolo, we're walking out on strike due to low staffing and them closing our union store.
Send the Caesar greedy side. 2, 4, 6, 8. Starbucks come negotiate.
Hey, hey, ho, ho. Union busting gotta go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Union busting's gotta go.
You just watched some footage from the first ever and the largest Starbucks union strike. About 1,000 Starbucks workers across 100 unionized stores are putting on the biggest strike in the company's history. And they're doing so to draw attention to the fact that the union busting within Starbucks continues, even though literally hundreds of stores have voted to unionize, and even though the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, has cited Starbucks with 900 alleged violations of labor laws, Starbucks still refuses to even acknowledge the union, acknowledge the workers and their desires, and they are not negotiating contracts on good faith. So the strikes started today, this morning. 60 stores will strike through the entire weekend. 40 stores will strike for some of the weekend, and they are asking consumers to avoid going to Starbucks stores in order to show solidarity with the striking workers. Now, let's break down what the Starbucks union busting really looks like. So the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, has cited the company with over 900 alleged violations of federal labor law since the union drive began. Starbucks Workers United, which is the name of the union that they have formed, claims that at least 150 workers have been illegally fired for unionizing. In fact, the first store in Seattle that unionized had a worker who was really spearheading the organizing effort. That worker had been fired as a result of their participation and leadership in trying to get the store unionized. And it's just incredible because everything that corporate has tried to do in busting these unions, in preventing the workers from organizing, has really failed. In fact, it's only led to more stores considering holding a vote to decide whether or not they should unionize. And even though they brought back their old school CEO, Howard Schultz, he hasn't been very successful, and you love to see it. And I'm curious what you think about this, Rayvana. I know that you're pretty outspoken in support of labor.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people have the misconception about how unionization efforts go. We see a lot of media attention on the votes leading up to unionizing, and that's definitely been the case with the Starbucks unions. And I think it's important to keep media focus on what happens next, which is contract negotiation. So not a single one of the Starbucks who have unionized has been able to reach an agreement with Starbucks on a union contract and to get their demands met, essentially, is what that process does. So continuing to have focus on the next less pretty longer part of the struggle for workers' rights is just as important as keeping media attention on the vote to unionize in the first place. I'll also say these companies love to say that they are actually representing the workers because unions are bad for workers. These companies wouldn't be spending all of the millions, billions of dollars that they are to fight against unionization efforts if they weren't going to benefit, if doing so is not going to benefit the company. All right, they don't care about the workers' rights. They don't want to protect their workers. They don't care if they make more. They want them to make less because that's better for their bottom line. It's better for their shareholders. So it's difficult to see workers who have fallen for that propaganda. But I think, and I'll just end with this, the funniest piece of propaganda that Starbucks has been pushing about unions is that it's not necessarily propaganda because it's true. There'll be a middleman between you and your boss. And I don't know a single person in America who wouldn't love to have someone in between them and their boss so that their boss isn't calling them middle of the night asking them to pick up another shift or whatever. But that's just a funny thing that they always highlight as like, oh no, your boss won't be able to directly come up and reprimand you anymore. Like, won't you miss that?
Yeah, well, I mean, Cenk, let's hear from you, the boss's perspective, right? And look, to be fair, I mean, it depends on the work environment. I like being able to speak with you directly. You're my boss, but we have a unique setup. It's a completely different environment from a giant corporation with like thousands of stores across the nation. But what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so there's two things here. One is a fun theory that I have that I'll run by you guys in a second. But first, to Anna's question, look, as we tell you in every story, things always depend. It depends on what the context is, right? So in the case, when you look at the big picture in America, do workers have too many rights? Are they making too much money? I mean, the only people who think that are the people who run giant corporations and every anchor on cable news. But outside of that, no one else thinks that. Now, is it possible still though that in a given industry or in a given company that the balance might be out of whack in the favor of labor? Well, it is possible actually. Like the steel industry did go down and we were not able to keep the prices as low as some other countries did. Now that's a very complicated and nuanced issue as well, but I'm just giving you broad strokes here. But so now when we turn into the coffee industry or the Starbucks company itself as a specific example, having seen the numbers, now look, I'm looking at it from a cursory point of view. I'm not in the middle of the negotiations, but Starbucks still has very significant profits. Starbucks workers are not being paid at much higher than the rest of the industry. They don't necessarily have better benefits than the rest of the industry. The complaints that they're lodging seem perfectly rational and reasonable. And so Starbucks, when it's stonewalling them, doesn't appear to be acting in good faith. When it shuts down branches that have recently unionized, they're not being altogether that subtle. They're basically saying, we don't think the government has any power to protect workers. So we're gonna be pretty brazen about this. And we're not gonna hire one guy, and hey, you hire one union organizer, maybe he had other issues, maybe he didn't, right? No, we're gonna fire tons of union organizers throughout the country. There's nothing that Starbucks is doing here that is subtle at all. And to Anna's point originally, this is also terrible business practices. So number one, you're turning all of your employees against you. Number two, you're turning a lot of customers against you. Number three, now your stock market price is dropping like a rock because none of this is helping your business at all. It appears that they're being obstinate here. And I think it's gotta be Howard Schultz, the founder, who's insisting on it. Because even if they just did the math and they didn't care about workers, they didn't, etc., but they would still realize giving the workers a package that's slightly better than what they have today would be infinitely better than the damage that they're doing to their business and their brand. I just think Schultz is being deeply stubborn and thinking that this is some sort of game and competition versus him versus employees. And in that competition, no one wins.
Well, I mean, they brought him back from retirement for this specific purpose, right? So he's literally doing what he was rehired to do. And what concerns me, okay, so just taking a step back and looking at the broader landscape and how politics plays into this. If you compare the National Labor Relations Board under Biden's watch to what we had under Trump's watch, I mean, it's night and day, really. And I have endless complaints about Joe Biden. I've aired those complaints on this show. However, the NLRB under his leadership has actually been pretty proactive. They've been good in responding to concerns and grievances that have been filed by workers across the country, which is why they have alleged Starbucks of more than 900 alleged labor violations. And so some of those cases are gonna be going to trial pretty soon. And one of the things that I think is just so fascinating about the union busting tactics is that corporate refuses to engage in any good faith negotiations to come up with a contract with the workers that have unionized. And at the same time, they make these like public announcements and declarations about enhanced benefits and enhanced pay that the non-unionized workers will be getting as a way to essentially retaliate against the workers who have organized. So that's a pretty classic tactic. I think the way they carried it out, very publicly announcing it, giving themselves a pat on the back and showing that they're rewarding those who haven't organized is just such clear union busting. Any final words before we go?
Yeah, I wanted to run my theory by you guys. I think part of the reason that Starbucks is being so obstinate, even when it doesn't make economic sense, is that they're worried about empowering these, in a sense, wildcat unions, right? I don't know if that's a term I just made up, but a lot of the union leadership in this country has been kept under control for a long, long time. A spectacular case of that just happened too with the Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen. They were part of the people who were thinking about a railway strike, and they thought that their union leadership sold them out, and they just voted the guy out. And he'd been there for a long, long time, and they brought in someone who was basically a novice that was not in union leadership before, because they're like, they've had it. Union leadership is always telling them to take crappy deals from management, right? And the bigger the company is, the less union leadership fights. And so there's this growing rebellion within the unions too. And in the Starbucks case, since it's like more organic and more, in my opinion, more representative, I think Starbucks is also thinking, no, we don't want to encourage this. We want to go back to the old days where you have one union leader and we control him, and he's controlled opposition, and then we get whatever we want. We want those days. So look, that's my theory. What do you think, Ray, about it?
I think there's also this issue where a lot of the union leaders have been, who have been union leaders for a while, have been doing it under a really impotent NLRB that they can't rely on to take action against the corporation. So they might be more inclined to encourage their workers to take worse deals than they could get now that we have a stronger, more proactive NLRB on their side, and not that's not going to be deferential to the companies. So I think it's a shift in the tides that just some people who have been in these institutions for a long time need to get with.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.